When we saw that Sebastian Vettel had joined Instagram, we thought we were having some form of hallucination. The man who had been so strongly and happily offline, the only member of the F1 grid who had never used social media, had joined us all. However, this bewildered happiness was short-lived, as his first post would perhaps be the most important of his career. Published in both English and German, the driver announced his retirement after 15 years in the sport with 53 race wins and 4 consecutive World Championship titles. This has left him one of the most successful drivers in the history of the sport, with only Lewis Hamilton, Michael Schumacher and Juan Manuel Fangio holding more world titles than only Hamilton and Schumacher with more wins. So let's take a look at Vettel's illustrious career, how it all began, his best drives, and what the German champion has in store for the future. Hello and welcome back to another video from World of Racing. Vettel began karting at the age of 3 and began racing in championships in 1995 at the age of 8. He was accepted into the Red Bull Junior team in 1998 and won various titles, such as the Junior Monaco Kart Cup in 2001. Vettel was promoted to open-wheel cars in 2003 and was given a chance by Derek Walker to test a Reynard Motorsport Champ car in a 2-day private test at the Homestead Road Course. A year later, he won the 2004 Formula BMW ADAC Championship with 18 victories from 20 races. Vettel drove for ASL Nuka Motorsport in the 2005 Formula 3 Euro Series. He was placed 5th in the final standings with 63 points and won the Rookie Cup. He tested for the Williams Formula 1 team later that year as a reward for his Formula BMW success. Vettel then went on to test for the BMW Sauber Formula 1 team. Just 18 years old at the time, he only completed 25 laps and was over 3 seconds off Webber's benchmark time. Later on, he would describe the sensations of driving an F1 car for the first time, admitting that the step up from Formula 3 was daunting at the time. "The first time I tested the car, Mark drove in the morning and I drove in the afternoon," he said. "I shat myself for the first couple of laps and I thought, alright, that's for real men, not for me. Then I got used to it and obviously wanted to do more." Vettel's rise to the Formula 1 spotlight coincided almost exactly with another major move, as a design genius by the name of Adrian Newey would leave then-employers McLaren for a new challenge to turn around the fortunes of Red Bull racing. But we'll get to that. In 2006, Vettel was promoted to test driver for BMW Sauber and participated in the Formula 3 Euro Series, finishing as runner-up. He also raced in the 2006 Formula Renault 3.5 Series, finishing 1st and 2nd in his first 2 races at Misano. Following an accident in the next round at Spa-Francorchamps, his finger was nearly severed by flying debris and he was expected to be out for several weeks. Despite this, he was able to compete in the 2006 Masters of Formula 3 at Zandvoort the following weekend, finishing 6th. Vettel won his first Formula Renault 3.5 Series race at the Nürburgring in 2007. He was leading the championship when he was called up to the BMW Sauber Formula 1 team on a permanent basis, marking the start of his Formula 1 career. And the rest, as they say, is history. Sebastian Vettel would go on to become not only one of the sport's all-time greats, but also a major progressive figure, assisting Formula 1 in its push for a more sustainable and inclusive future. On his way to making history, Vettel would display acts of brilliance from the start, with what would almost certainly become his most famous triumph occurring early in his F1 career. Of course, we're referring to the 2008 Italian Grand Prix. Vettel surely became a better driver after 2008, but it's the circumstances of the win, his inexperience, the unfancied car and the tricky conditions that elevate this performance in everyone's eyes. Toro Rosso's 2008 season was undoubtedly one of its best, but the team formerly known as Minardi was more of a point scorer than a podium contender. But rain during qualifying at Monza allowed Vettel to exploit the Ferrari-engined STR3, and he took a sensational pole. The track was still wet on race day, but the faster cars, such as Heikki Kovalainen's McLaren starting on the front row, were expected to be too strong over the 53 laps. The race began behind the safety car, with Vettel leading Kovalainen when the action resumed, and to everyone's surprise, he pulled clear. It was a case study in wet weather brilliance in the beautifully balanced Toro Rosso, according to F1 correspondent Mark Hughes. Vettel was driving with a great uninhibited abandon, as if he had nothing to lose, sliding around just as he had in qualifying. Vettel overcame a wild moment early on and led after the first round of pit stops. Kovalainen looked beaten, but his teammate was another matter. Vettel had Lewis Hamilton in his mirrors at half distance, the McLaren driver charging after starting 15th. Then Hamilton pitted and put on more extreme wets, with McLaren expecting more rain. This was a critical juncture. If it rained again, Hamilton could finish on those tyres, whereas Vettel would need to pit. However, the rain held off, forcing Hamilton to pit again for intermediates, allowing Vettel to complete his scheduled second pit stop without losing the lead. He finished 12.5 seconds ahead of Kovalainen to become F1's youngest winner at the time, and Toro Rosso took its first and only win. Without Sebastian in the car, this win would not have been possible, said Toro Rosso's technical director Giorgio Asanelli. It was an incredible day with a package that wasn't supposed to be close to the podium, said Vettel years later. I'm extremely proud to have been part of that miracle day. His incredible victory earned him the nickname a Baby Schumi among German media, and he was named Rookie of the Year at the Autosport Awards for his efforts. The biggest prize, however, was a promotion to the Red Bull team, where he would replace the retired David Coulthard for the 2009 season. To say that the stakes were high would be an understatement. Sebastian Vettel would work with designer and aerodynamicist Adrian Newey for the first time, and Vettel's reputation as a highly technically interested driver paved the way for a new state of operations at the Milton Keynes team. Not only did they have two great talents on their hands, but the synergy between them would eventually deal the killing blow to their competition. I think Sebastian is a remarkable young man. I think it's completely unfair to try and rank drivers I've been lucky enough to work with, but Sebastian is outstanding, Newey would later say. To achieve what he's done is remarkable. His focus is incredible, and he's very calm and very focused. He's a bright lad who makes mistakes like all of us, and always learns from them. He very rarely makes the same mistake twice. He gives good, concise feedback. All the pieces of the jigsaw seemed to be coming together nicely, and the team would go on to have its most competitive season to date, with Vettel pushing eventual champion Jenson Button all the way in the second half of the season as they caught up on the technical advantage Brawn GP had gained with its controversial double diffuser. But it was Newey's work on Red Bull's own blown diffuser in 2010 that gave them an advantage over the field by controlling the airflow over the double diffuser and around the tyre to improve downforce. And it is that advancement that brought Sebastian Vettel his first title, though it didn't come easy. And it was that advancement that helped Sebastian Vettel on the road to his first championship, though it would not be easy. Vettel was only fourth in the drivers' standings with 2 rounds remaining in the 2010 season, 25 points behind Alonso. Vettel's victory in Brazil moved him up to third, but he was still 15 points behind Alonso and 7 behind Red Bull teammate Webber. Vettel edged Hamilton to pole in the Abu Dhabi finale by just 31 thousandths of a second and held off the McLaren into the first corner. Hamilton kept Vettel under pressure, but when they emerged on opposite sides of traffic after their only stops, victory was all but sealed for Red Bull. Vettel slowed his engine and finished 10.2 seconds ahead. That performance should have been a heroic failure, with him doing everything he could to win the title, but failing short due to others doing what they needed to do. But they didn't. Webber had pitted early, and Ferrari reacted by bringing in Alonso 4 laps later to cover him, expecting the front runners to follow suit due to tyre degradation. However, once the graining phase was completed, the leaders were able to pick up the pace and stay out. This put Alonso behind Vitaly Petrov's Renault, which had stopped during an early safety car period, and put him at risk of being jumped by later stoppers. Alonso was unable to pass Petrov for the remainder of the race, resulting in the Ferrari finishing 7th, with Webber trailing closely behind. As a result, Vettel won his first world title by 4 points over Alonso and 14 points over Webber. Autosport magazine called it one of the sport's great upsets, but Vettel had played his role perfectly in the thrilling finish. The German gathered his thoughts well enough to give us his reaction. "I don't have words to describe everything that I'm feeling right now. I'm so happy I could hug everyone that crosses my path. At the moment, it's kind of hard to believe that all these things really happened today. I'm just unbelievably proud." Little did he know what Newey had in store for him. Unless you've been living under a rock, you know what came next. 3 more years of Red Bull domination would follow, with Adrian Newey's incredible designs and Sebastian Vettel's driving prowess making for a killer combination. On his way to 4 straight world titles, Vettel would produce some of the most incredible drives the sport has ever seen. There was the 2011 Spanish Grand Prix, when Vettel battled both on and off the track, perfectly timing his pit stops and being ruthless when it came to overtaking to claim victory. Then, 2 years later, at the Indian Grand Prix, when Vettel used a soft tyre to take pole by nearly a second and the more durable medium rubber to win by nearly half a minute, all the while battling all the way from 17th place after an early pit stop. "A devastating victory won through sheer, pummeling, relentless pace," said Autosport. It was a fitting way for Vettel to secure his 4th world title. The fairy tale, however, would not last forever, and 2014 would be his final year at Red Bull. Vettel struggled with reliability issues throughout winter testing and forced him to retire at the opening Australian Grand Prix. Reliability problems also forced Vettel to retire at the Monaco and Austrian Grand Prix. After the Russian Grand Prix, he had been out-qualified by a teammate over a season for the first time in his Formula One career. In addition to reliability issues, Vettel struggled to get to grips with the Red Bull RB10 and Pirelli tyres throughout the season. He finished the year by becoming the first defending champion since Jacques Villeneuve in 1998 to fail to win a race. Red Bull announced in October that Vettel would leave the team at the end of the year to join Scuderia Ferrari, 1 year before his contract was set to expire. But not everything was so bleak at first. Sebastian Vettel, a 4-time world champion, and Scuderia Ferrari, the most successful constructor on the grid, seemed like a match made in heaven. However, as we all know, the 2 parties would later split up without a single championship triumph. Ultimately, it wasn't Ferrari's disastrous internal politics or Sebastian Vettel's numerous costly mistakes that brought them down. No, it was the Mercedes team's sheer dominance that rendered any attempt to dethrone them futile. But even during those years, when Vettel was unable to achieve his goal of more titles, he produced some truly incredible drives that rivaled even his time at Red Bull. It is ironic then, as well as brilliant and tragic, that the 2019 Singapore Grand Prix was the race that transported us all back to Vettel's glory days at Red Bull. Vettel had been without a win for 392 days when he awoke on Sunday morning in Singapore. But victory number 53 in the German's career had to be one of the sweetest. He arrived at the Marina Bay circuit on the back foot, having lost out to teammate Charles Leclerc in Belgium before sabotaging his own race with a spin in Italy. However, an early pit stop from P3 in the Singapore Grand Prix allowed Vettel to undercut his teammate and Lewis Hamilton in front, leaving the German with a net lead that he held on to 3 safety car periods to claim victory. Vettel was quick to thank the fans before his understandably emotional podium appearance. The last couple of weeks have not been the best, but it's been incredible, to be honest, to get so much support, so many letters, so many nice messages, people telling their own stories when things might not go well, and so on. It gave me a lot of strength, belief, and I tried to put it all into the track today, into the car, and it's nice when it pays off. Nobody could imagine at the time, but that would be the final victory in the German's illustrious career. A disastrous 2020 season with Ferrari would be the final nail in the coffin for the partnership, and Vettel would then move on to Aston Martin before announcing his retirement at the end of 2022. Despite his on-track stagnation at Ferrari and Aston Martin, never really showing the greatness he once did at Red Bull or having the car to bring home more titles, Vettel's off-track transformation in that time has been unmistakable. and leaving now as an increasingly public force for good, both in his GPDA role and in his environmental pursuits, as well as Aston's top dog rather than a former great effectively broken by Ferrari, is a much preferred outcome. When asked to reflect on his legacy in the sport, Vettel emphasized the many people he has met and friendships he has formed, not the tons of silverware he's been able to rack up. I had a similar question: what do you keep? And I said, I will keep a lot of silverware. But I think more than that is really the memories, the emotions, the highs and the lows, the people that I've met. Lewis is obviously one of the central figures in the last years, one of the friends I made, and that stays. It would be a much harder decision to retire if you give up all of that and you lose all these people. Obviously, I will not see them as regularly as now, and it will be very different, but it's the friendships, the people and the relationships that stay. That's probably the biggest one that I'm looking forward to keeping, and the most meaningful legacy. Regarding his achievements in Formula One, Vettel admits that we all have our time and praised the new generation of talent making their mark. I think we all have a limit. Obviously, if you achieve more, then it's a little bit further, you're pushing that a little bit further. But I think it's good. There are new kids on the block and they're doing great. The time today and tomorrow belongs to them, so that's just how it goes. We all have our time, and I think, most importantly, we make the most of it and we enjoy it, and then move on and make room for the next ones. Even though he is no longer the driving force he once was, he still contributed a great deal to F1. That obviously shifted towards a greater off-track focus in recent years. Now, just as he was finding his voice in a consistent and strong way, Vettel's going. It's a huge loss for the sport, not something a single driver will be able to replace. Vettel possessed a rare combination of sporting pedigree, personal gravitas, and genuine enthusiasm for the causes he championed. Seb may no longer be among the absolute elite, but the grid is weaker without him, and his absence will leave the F1 community a poorer place. What is your favourite moment of Sebastian Vettel's career? Will you miss him on the grid? Leave your thoughts in the comments section. If you liked this video, please click the like button and subscribe for more videos just like this. Thanks for watching and happy racing!